Welcome everyone to a very distinguished panel discussion as a part of the 100 Women to Watch campaign. So thrilled that you are here with us today. So this particular panel is designed as a space for truth, for confidence, and also for leadership. So today we're going to talk about what it really means for women to claim their voice, to speak with authority, and also to stand unapologetically in their message. So whether you're on stages and boardrooms, on panels, or speaking just like life, into your friends and your family and your community, your voice is an instrument for impact. And when you own it with clarity and intention, that's where you really get to shift rooms. So our panelists today come from different industries, different life paths, but we all share one thread. Each of us has learned in our own way how to step forward and to speak powerfully when it really, really matters. So you'll hear wisdom, lived experience, and the kind of honesty that really moves conversations forward. So this is a organic conversation. Everyone who's watching as well, you have a way to participate. We can see your comments. So your question may end up on screen and we would love, love, love to address it. So please be a part of the conversation too. Thank you for being here. Those of you who are watching, thank you for being here. Those of you who are on the panel, and thank you for listening and for taking up space with us. So let's get started. Here's the first question here, right? Women in the media, they often step into rooms where the narrative has historically been shaped without them, right? And it's an unfortunate fact, and also it is what it is. Was there a moment ever in your career, in your history, where you realized that your voice could actually shift the direction of a story or a brand or even a conversation? And also, how did you learn to trust that power? And this is for anyone who'd love to pick this one up.
Well, hi everyone. I am so happy to kick off. And Dr. Brandy Sims, I saw you coming off mute, so my apologies. I feel like both of us just jumped at it. I always do love this question, and I actually really love too how you introed us as well, using your voice as an instrument. And for me, one of my life sayings is use your platform for a purpose fueled by your passions. And so one of the reasons I jumped into media, it was because I could have control, right, of a narrative and help to shift narratives that I just didn't see fit or put forth, just great value to an audience, those that weren't truthful and just those honestly that were stereotypes against people, much like often that look like me. So I think for me, honestly, I see this a lot in my role. I'm a woman who works in the sports field, which we're still diversifying, but we're still not the majority. But that being said, I think the one that comes to mind probably more recently for some of the viewers listening on was the whole conversation that happened around, I'm going to call her WNBA star, Angel Reese. And so Angel Reese was someone I had a chance to follow her career throughout. I also went to the University of Maryland, go Terps. So I remember when she was at Maryland. And then obviously she went to LSU, or I would say she probably was more famously, right, introduced to the world. We get that championship game. But more importantly, we kind of see her start to hit the narrative, right? In terms of going from just sports to really becoming mainstream. When the whole, you can't see me move happened and all the commentary happened around her. And of course, WNBA star as well, Caitlin Clark, two very well-known names. So, fast forward, there's a lot of narratives going around. How is she this? How is she that? And for me, I got to put on a couple of my hats and lenses. My lens as a sports journalist, I got to talk from her from a standpoint of, who Angel Reese is. I'm from Maryland girl. Angel Reese is from Baltimore. So got to talk about obviously some of the background points there. Talked about the college upbringing. I played basketball, right? So bringing all of that. Also, I got my degree in journalism and African American studies. So not only talking as a Black woman, but one who was actually trained, right? In the history and narrative and background of just our people, to be quite frank. and then also owning a communications firm, right? And as a publicist lens. So wearing all those different hats, and no, I always preach being multifaceted. I think it's so, so important. And so I think for me, and I was like, wait, what do you mean she's angry? No, she's a competitor. This happens in sports. And there were many, many other examples, of Black women and just honestly women in general, right? Like when you're on that court, your game face is on. And so bringing that to the narrative, right? Where she was trying to be shaped and pulled into this nasty person. And quite frankly, I had to call some people out for what they were calling her. Again, this young girl, bright student athlete, right? That we were all seeing grow upon our eyes. And so I think I'm one of those people that's never afraid to, hop in or pop in for something, but not only because it needed to be said, but because it was the right thing to do. And, just earlier this year, I had a chance actually to, sit on a panel with Christine Brennan, who most recently wrote Caitlin Clark's memoir that came out. And me and her kind of come from opposite lens of how Caitlin Clark is perceived, but we shared the stage. I think that's also important, right? Bringing different voices to the tables. And it was honestly one of the best conversations. And I've known Christine Brennan for about 10 years, also met her when I was at the University of Maryland. And honestly, some of the best feedback I've ever gotten, right? Where again, you can bring two different voices. I hope people in politics are listening. You can come from two different sides, but sit down and have a conversation and it be fruitful, right, to the listening audience. So I thought that was important as well. Because again, from my side, I watch basketball as a fan, as a journalist, and as someone who wants to, push women's sports and propel women's sports forward. And so I think what that's also transitioned to is maybe an advocate in the newsroom and using my voice to make sure anytime I'm on TV, I will plug women's sports. I will plug women's basketball. And especially anytime I have a chance to talk about Angel Race again, talking about her as a whole brand, because she is a brand, but also, of course, bringing in the athlete and competitor part of her as well.
Excellent. Thank
Oh,
you so much, Kelsey. You're bringing up a lot of really good points. Absolutely. Let's go, Dr. Sims.
all right, all right. Well, I'm up. Well, very well said, Kelsey. And definitely, I'm so excited to be a part of this and just kind of speak on this topic even further. But for me, surprisingly enough, I think the moment that I realized and really recognized the strength of my voice within this space was actually this year. I had the opportunity to interview Larry Namer, who is the founder of E Entertainment Media Network, so and really media conglomerate. And in this conversation, we had I had spoke with his team, got it all set up. The plan was he wanted to be able to promote his book. And right out the gate, I was thinking in my mind, okay, you're here to just promote your book. I'm going to need a little bit more than this. So, as we were going through the prep, the process, actually getting on and actually going through the entire interview, I, in my mind, was like, okay, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. I'm going to do what a journalist, a reporter would do in this instance. I want to hear more about you. I want to know about your journey. I want to know about your story. And from there, it went from him kind of talking more about his book and pushing and promoting that to him really diving into his growth as a business owner, as a founder, as someone who came from the Bronx to start a multi-million, if not multi-billion dollar network that did not exist before. We didn't have networks that were just dedicated purely to celebrity entertainment. We didn't have that. Yes, sports, but not in regard to celebrity and lifestyle, right? So it was such a huge shift, but it was in that moment in having this conversation with him, having this dialogue with him, switching gears from just a book promotion into really deep diving into the process of building a business, the process of negotiation, heck, even getting into international media and all of that good stuff. It was one moment that I can definitely say it showed me so much in not only the power of my voice, but how truly important the power of media is and how much we have to take that stand and take that step to change the narrative and change the conversation, because I could have very well taken that interview and just let him have at it, right? Especially when you have a new platform like what my platform is, the Branding PR podcast, which is hosted through my agency, Branding PR. We could have just easily had the interview, let him talk, let him get all the things out, let him get all the sales and pitchy stuff out. But I made that quick decision in that moment to say, you know what, that's never been me in my life. It's never been me in my career to just go with what you say and what you think I should do in this moment, or really just let anyone steer the wheels of this, or the steering wheel of this. No. I've always gone against the grain. And I think in this moment, it was that time where I looked and I was like, okay, now I get it. This is what they talk about when they say recognizing your voice, and recognizing in this moment the strength and the power that it has. Because we could have very well did the norm, just let them go on, have a platform, have a space, and just talk it off and just do their own thing. Or we can have a real conversation and really deep dive into the specifics. Okay, great, you have a business. Well, how were you able to scale? Have you been able to scale? Okay, how did you get from point A to point B? What was the in between? I want to know about that stuff. I don't just want to know about how great you are and how successful you are. I want to know all the nitty gritty, the hard stuff that people don't like to talk about. No one wants to talk about all the times that they sucked in a situation or they were terrible at a situation. But you know what? There's learning lessons in that, and there's value in that. And that's what we want to hear. And that's what I wanted in that moment. So certainly having that experience was absolutely one that just changed my way of how I approach these things, but also just kind of reminded me of the importance of that intuition and going with that gut. Let's not just go with what's there. Let's go against the grain and change that narrative. And having that power to do so, it was a complete game changer. Absolutely.
All
Yeah,
right.
absolutely, Lauren.
Well, I love what both of you ladies have said. And when I think about it, there's so many things in what both of you ladies said that resonate with me and resonate with many of my own stories. And really, Brandy, what you were saying just now about, kind of going against the grain and owning the narrative, it really brings me to, I've been fortunate to have a few different moments where I can look back and say, okay, this shaped me in this moment in my career where I found my voice, or really harnessed my voice. But if I had to think of a most recent time, it would definitely be in my most recent role where I served as the director of communications at Paramount. And throughout that role, I've overseen many projects, many TV programs and things that I've loved. But one of my most coveted projects was to serve as the press lead and oversee the campaign strategy for The Shy, which is a show and series that I was a major fan of prior to even being assigned. Just with all of the different, transition and movement that was going on in our company at the time, I actually got passed the baton to take over the publicity for the show. So it was a lot of pressure, definitely a very tall order, especially when you're on season 7 of a series and there's been a lot done before. You have this pressure of how you're going to put your twist on it, what can be done. And for me, it was looking at how amazing this show was, how amazing of a story this was, how amazing and important the story was to Black culture, and how it was something that I thought needed to be preserved. But also, I thought that there was a lot of great things that were done, but there was more to do, right? And for me, it was about, okay, how do I not let, because it's even season 7, which for many who may not understand how like the film and TV and business work, usually when you're and that long of a show at the 7th season, um, you tend to kind of start checking the box a little bit when it comes to your campaign strategy, right? You put a lot of the effort and things into those first couple of seasons, and then by the time you get to season 7, a lot of times it's just like rinse and repeat. You're keeping the viewership steady. But for me, as someone who, I'm never the kind of person that likes to check the box. For me, throw the whole box away and let's create a new box. Let's always keep it fresh. So for me, it was about fighting for a show, really fighting for something that was deeply personal to me because it reflected my own community. Having to show up in rooms and be with decision makers and stakeholders in my company who, you know, had larger titles than me, who had more decision making, um, power than me, and really kind of fight for something I believed in, that maybe everyone else was just ready to kind of just let it be. Let's just keep checking the box. Let's just keep making sure the numbers are strong. But for me, it was more than that to me. Like, it was about making sure that we made sure that this campaign reached out to the community that it served. It was about making sure that we pulled in the viewers and the people who resonated with these stories. And so that even looks like having to go to my superiors and say, hey, the same budget that XYZ popular show is getting. And I'm not going to say the name of the other shows, but I'm sure some of you could only imagine. The same budget that this show is getting to do this big, amazing campaign. I need the same budget, right? I need the same budget to do this because we're not, we're a tentpole show for this network. We're driving a lot of the numbers, the viewerships. The numbers were there when you look at the data and you see what the performance that this series is doing, but why aren't we getting the same foundation to be able to pull off what we can pull off? Why do we have to be relegated to checking the box when these other teams and these other projects and these other series, they don't have to check the box. They have unlimited resources to go ahead and do all of the amazing things that they want to do with their campaign. So for me, realizing I really had to harness the power of my voice. And sometimes that meant that I was the only one in the room fighting for it and saying, no, we need X, Y, and Z, because a lot of times in film and TV, guys, and in so many other industries, I'm sure this is what happens. Like, our Black entertainment, as you would say, our Black shows, we get the last crumbs. While all other programming, everything that is that the team and the executives want to focus on, they get the first picks, and then we get the crumbs until they see the numbers. And they give us just enough to be able to do the numbers. And so for me, it was speaking up and saying, no, this is not going to work. And yes, we are on season 7, but we're still going to do a red carpet premiere event, because we owe it to this amazing cast. We owe it to these amazing creators and executives and writers and Lena and all of these people who, bust their behind on this show. Like, we owe it to figure out how we can really make this season 7 campaign blow it out the water. And so, it was me sometimes fighting my own team, telling them that, widen your mind. Like, let's not just check the box. Let's break out of the mold and see what we can do. And, I'm really proud that I stuck to my gut in doing that, because after all was said and done and everyone's seeing all the wonderful accolades and the feedback and the campaign breaking numbers, then it rolls in like, oh, thank you for pushing for this show. Thank you for doing this. But if I would have just did what everyone else wanted me to do, just sit there and check the box, just to get it done, just to say that we did it, then I feel like I couldn't have been able to look at myself in the mirror, right? Because I had to lead with what I felt was right. And I had to be able to, at the end of the day, like, everything I do is for my community. And I wouldn't be able to look at my community in the face feeling like I had an opportunity to make a difference and I shortchanged my own community. You know what I'm saying? So, I would say I feel like that's the most recent example of how I felt like, I have an opportunity to really trust my voice and really stand for something, even if I'm the only one standing.
Absolutely. Lauren, there's probably a plethora of people who feel the same way that you do, but probably haven't taken the same action, right? So kudos to you for actually walking your talk and your thoughts and not letting it kind of dissolve away into the box. When I think about this kind of interaction that we have with the industry, also as women, what I realize is that that imposter syndrome, like, it has to go, right? Whatever it is that we need to adopt, whatever confidence it is that we need to borrow from wherever it is that we need to get it, like, let's do it now. right? It actually occurred to me the other day when someone asked me how long I've been in PR, and I almost cringed a little bit. I'm like, oh my goodness, like despite this baby face, I've been in the industry for 20 years. And there are some projects that even I'm astonished that I was a part of. Over a decade ago, our team was responsible for the production where Cicely Tyson got to stand on stage for a Trip to Bountiful and receive her first Tony. Like, I was holding her jacket while we were walking around the press junket. Like, these are things that we don't shy away from. We actually get to embrace and we get to talk about it because it is absolutely significant. So thank you. Thank you all for sharing on that point. We've got another one here because a lot of times communicators learn to prioritize access, speed, and results over authenticity. And Lauren, you covered this a little bit. We're going to go a little bit deeper. So, what belief, industry rule, or unspoken expectation did you have to release in order to tell stories with more integrity, with less performative pressure?
Oh, well, I'll go right into right into it then. Um, I I feel like for me, I had to release the belief or, I guess industry rule, as you would say, that you know, that my superiors or whomever I report to, they are always right. And I think especially when you work in corporations and you're a corporate girly or whatever you have and you report to someone, it's always you follow what your superiors want, and that is what it is. But for me, I feel like I had to release the thing that I re- I report to a boss, and so that means that they are always right and they are like the boss over me. I think I had to release that a little bit so I could step into my own power, because if I'm always thinking that my boss is right, then what am I really here for? What am I here to add value? Because I could just get it all from them, right? They could just write me every single day and say, this is what you do. What am I here for? What value am I adding to this? So I think for myself, once I release that and once I really feel like I tapped into the power of who I am and what I bring to the table and what I add to the table, it helped me be able to kind of speak up a little bit more. It helped me to not put so much pressure on myself. It also helped me learn how to lead better. It helped me learn how to work in a team better. I just became more confident with myself. Became more confident with myself as a leader. I became more confident in knowing what to do and speaking up, and again taking hold of my ideas, and even if there's no right or wrong, sometimes it's not the right time for a certain idea, but I at least feel like I learned to trust my own gut, um and not always take what somebody else says as fact. Go and think about it for yourself, have your own voice, have your own mind. Obviously, yes, your superiors are there to guide you, but it is not like a one size fits all. And so I think that that really helped me, because when I don't believe in something and when I don't think that we're doing the right thing or we're not doing something with integrity, I'm able to have the confidence to speak up and say, wait, no, 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 no. I think we need to do X, Y, and Z. So I feel like, that was it for me, is just to release that thinking that our bosses and our superiors, that they know everything. That might not be the best thing to say to some people watching. I'm not telling you to go against your boss and but I'm just saying, be able to have independent thinking.
Yes, a critical thinking skill.
Well, hey, Kelsey, are you gonna? I see the screen has jumped onto you, girl, because I was raising my hand. I'm like, okay, I'll get in there.
I'm like, okay, if I'm on, I'm happy to go because I know Brandy's is great.
I was itching to get into this one just because Lauren, as you were going, I immediately thought of, experience that I had that was kind of similar to yours, but it's similar to yours, but just in a different kind of aspect here. But similar to Kai, I've worked in the PR space for over 15 years. So with that, I've worked in several different industries, from beauty to tech, nonprofit, working with startup companies all the way to very established multi-million dollar companies. And one thing that immediately came to mind in your question was, what is that industry rule? What is that industry rule, right? That I had to resist. And the first thing that came to mind was this: he who pays makes the rules. I was told that from being an intern to a student, all the way up to, well, even now, I get comments like that. Oh, well, he who pays makes the rule. Remember that, Brandy. So when I look at it, I think of those instances where that was brought up, right? It was always brought up when we were dealing with media stuff, right? And we've got advertisers, we've got sponsors, the big guys that are putting the most dollars in. Okay, well, they want this story run. We're going to run that story. They want to be in this table and have the best lighting, you have to give it to them. Well, because he who pays makes the rules, and so on and so forth. And I remember hearing this constantly throughout my career, even up to this point of he who pays, who pays makes the rules. And I had to really, really hone in and release the pressure of this statement when I decided to create my own platform, and when I decided to work on different platforms, because of that important thing that Lauren mentioned. It's integrity. Just because this person paid the most, or this organization, this business paid the most to be a part of this, that does not guarantee that they have the most exposure, they have the most coverage, or that their story trumps everything else that's going on. That's not how media works. And if that is, then if you're going to do that, then you're no longer, I would say, and consider traditional media, because traditional media is objective. Traditional media has a code of ethics. You must follow this. And traditional media has that integrity, amongst many other values that are super, super important to this. And if you're going to be that way, then that's what you're going to be. And that's how your work and your output is going to continue to present. But if you really want to be a true keeper of the key, I guess you can say, in media, you have to consider all of these aspects in it. It's no shocker when we look into the news and see how much of this and what I'm saying is factoring into news today. When oligarchs have the ability to decide, okay, well, I don't want that story to run because it makes me look unfavorable, and media platforms decide, okay, well, we won't run it, that's a problem. We have to continue to have that objectivity. We have to continue to have that neutrality in sharing simply this, the story. And so with that, I just go back to that phrase, that statement that I've always heard, oh, he who pays, you know, makes the rules. Well, I don't believe in that. And I had to resist that despite being trained and told, hey, if they pay them, we have to take care of them first. Or if they do this, we got to take care of them first. Or hey, if they send this, we got to cover that first. I had to retrain my own brain and thinking like, no, just because you paid first and just because you paid the most, you're the top sponsor and all of this stuff, that doesn't guarantee that we're going to just push whatever you want. And similar to my previous story and covering and really interviewing Larry, the initial, of course, was to just talk about his book. Well, I don't have to just talk about your book. You're coming to my platform. I have the mic. So in that moment, I had to decide then, okay, what is this going to be? Are we going to really do this thing called media? Or we're just going to be like everyone else that allows people to go onto their platform just to spill whatever they want. There's no challenge, there's no objectivity, there's no neutrality, and just let them do whatever they want. And in which case, I mean, honestly, you could have just done a live. Did you need to have a platform for this? You know what I'm saying? So, but to kind of sum it up, I think that was the one thing that I really did have to resist, despite that training and constantly being told that, to just say stop and say no. I want to lead with that integrity. I want to lead with that objectivity. And again, just because they paid the most, that should not give you and grant you that access to everything, and the world's your oyster and you can just do whatever you want. I don't believe in that. And that's something that we have to stop. That's the moment for me that was the turning point to say, like, listen, we can't, I'm not going to roll that way. And I have to be intentional in ensuring that I don't let those thoughts trickle in of what I've always been told I have to do be the thing that defines me now.
Incredible, Brandy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love everything and agree with everything that Brandy and Lauren said. And especially Brandy, I love that you hit on journalists and our principles and ethics. You know, all journalists, if you're a trained journalist, you take your SBJ code of ethics and you take integrity, objectivity seriously. And I think now more than ever, that needs to be just said loudly because I think unfortunately some of the lines in journalism are beginning to get blurred, and people honestly really not knowing the difference between a journalist, you know, and some of the other roles that also do have large audiences, right, and large followings. So I did just want to start there. I think for me, something that came to mind instantly, and also Lauren, just loved how you said be innovative and pitch your ideas, because I think that's also something, especially when I was the younger person in the room, that I felt like I always kind of had to push through. Like, just because I'm younger doesn't mean I don't have knowledge. I had done a lot of work, and I've done a lot of work and held a lot of roles. But what comes to me is something I always heard was you can be a jack of all trades and master of none. And I think I always fought against that because since I turned 16, I mean, I've never had just one job in my entire life. I don't know what it is to have one job. Now, mind you, when you talk to Kelsey Nicole Nelson, who hopefully makes 80 years old, that will probably be a much different answer. But for now, like, I love being able to do multiple things. And I say multiple things well. It's something I talk with my students about. It's something I talk to my interns about. And so I think what I've always had to leverage and push, because I think sometimes people get a little bit afraid when they see somebody that's in so many different places and spaces and doing different things, like, can she really do this job? And so I think for me, what I've had to learn to do is how to leverage all of the unique tools, you know, and everything I bring in my toolbox, you know, to each and every job that I have, and show how they can correlate. You know, I'm somebody who has worked full time in both media and communication, something that people tell you, you know, just it can't be done. It can. And I promise you, it's a fun industry to work in both. It gets crazy, but it's absolutely thrilling. And knowing both sides for me, I think, has been key to my longevity. But one of the things I love to leverage is, like, when I'm talking, and this is also why I love LinkedIn, because I know people will talk to me like, wait, there's no way she can be doing this. And then they go like verify it and go check it. But I use my sports and entertainment background in a lot of different things I do. So I do a lot of different work in the education and nonprofit space, and kind of what that's turned into. You know, one of a group I used to work with that does oversees charter schools, or I should say helps to assist charter schools all throughout the country. Every week during Congressional Black Caucus Week, you know, here in DC, it's a really big deal. All the politicians come, right? It's a fun time. If you haven't been, you definitely need to come to DC in December. But one of the things I was able to leverage was we weren't getting through the noise. No one knew about the event. And so this is when I was able to be like, look, hey, we need to bring a name in. We need to interweave sports and entertainment in this event as well, because that's something that everyone can connect to. And hi to all my friends watching. I appreciate you all so much. And so one of the things we were able to do is bring in, you know, former NBA star, now, you know, analyst on television, Jalen Rose, and actually get to honor, you know, him. He has a charter school in Detroit. It was doing really good. It was graduating Black children at high rates and sending them to college. And so honestly, being able to open their eyes. And then also just with media coverage, you know, I'm very involved in our National Association of Black Journalists. I used to be vice president of our Washington Association of Black Journalists. So I think really showcasing how you can leverage, right, all of those different roles. And I think that's something I really want young people, honestly, anybody who enters this industry to understand. Like, it annoys me still that when people ask what you do, and it's usually one of the first things someone asks you, they're kind of expecting like one-word answers and one title. Well, for me, you're going to have to sit back a little bit. You might hear a little gasp, and there's going to be a little commas, because there's different things, but again, they all interweave and intersect. And so again, I think we just need to break that mold. And not saying also though that everybody can do that, right? Some people are love doing one thing, and they might do one thing really well. But I think if you are able to, you know, handle different things, and if we're being honest on this panel, as Black women, you usually do have to own and do different things. I think to really have some career growth, I do think that's something that needs to be honestly celebrated and not tolerated. And so for me, you know, I love bringing in all the different experiences and titles, you know, that I've held, and companies that I worked with. Like, don't be afraid of all of that. No, if anything, you can leverage it, we can amplify it, and ultimately it's going to help you work your brand. So I think that's something that just needs to kind of be said out loud, not just whispered. And for me, I've owned that. I used to be in interviews, I used to try to like hide all of me doing different things because I thought I was going to scare people away. But now I'm like, well, let me just be, let me be clear. I love to like, I set the record straight, right? It's like dating, give all the stuff up front, and give it out there. And honestly, it's been really good feedback. But again, it's something I think that we need to make the norm and the standard, because especially in this economy, I think it's going to be real fruitful to have people that can bring different things from different backgrounds and industries, especially if it comes in one package, to be able, to help and be an asset to your organization or company.
Love, love, love what you're saying, Kelsey, especially if we're taking the lens of being in a collaborative economy, then, that becomes possible. But if we're still operating on that old system, where everything's a competition, it's a race, we got to hurry and hustle, then it doesn't work. So what you're saying, I just love how you're speaking life into the possibilities of where it is that we can go. Okay. Ooh, this has been invigorating conversation. We've got one more question here, and this one we're going to start to kind of like, culminate our thoughts. We want to think about the industry, right? In terms of influence, maybe, now we're not defining it as virality or reach anymore, but maybe we're talking more about like the ability to shift perception and maybe do things like expand empathy or even move culture forward. That's come up a little bit. So I'm curious, what does meaningful influence look like to you today? And also, how does it guide the way that you use your platform and your storytelling skills? Because we can use it all kinds of ways, right? But right now, the person that you are and the decisions that you're making currently, love to know what that looks like for you. And also, please share where people can find you, out in the world and on the internet. And anybody can pick this one up.
Okay, I'll jump in. Well, for me, what that influence looks like, especially in today's society and culture, I would have to say it's the success of those who work around me. That is my defining point. That's my defining point of, have I been an influence in someone else, is seeing their success. And I can speak to this from both the perspective of media, but also just within my own company with Branding PR. We have a remote internship program, have hosted it for the past 4 years, started the agency 5 years ago, and we've hosted dozens of students across the country and now internationally. And when I get feedback from students that complete successfully our internship, that they landed a job at some of the biggest agencies in the country, I'm rooting for them. I am shouting their praises off the rooftop, like, you go, girl, or you go, boy, you got this. I am just as ecstatic as they are, and seeing them be successful within the space, even if they don't stay with us. Them being able to take off and find another industry or find another space and be incredibly successful in it. That's what major influence to me feels like, that the results of that, because you see it in the success of those that are around you. You see it not only within yourself, but your environment and the people that you come into contact with. I think that is a major indication of your influence. To be able to get that feedback from students that they've been able to successfully land one of those gigs, to be able to get feedback and say that, hey, because of your internship, I was able to do XYZ. That means a lot, even down to just students that have taken one of our courses or taken one of our programs, for them to come back and say, hey, I tried this and this works so well. I was able to get XYZ result, or I was able to hit that goal just based on that instruction. That means a lot to me. And I think that is something that we often, and I think it was spoken about earlier, we don't talk about those small wins. We don't talk about those things that we have been able to achieve and who we've been able to support and help, because oftentimes, I mean, I don't know if I can speak for everyone, but oftentimes you get told, oh, well, you shouldn't brag on yourself and you should be humble. Well, I feel like that needs to be tossed. That needs to be put off into the burner. We've been humbling ourselves for way too long. Shout it out. You got a degree. Awesome. You got a certificate. That's amazing. You were able to achieve this goal based on this thing that you set up 5 years ago, 1 year ago, 2 weeks ago. It doesn't matter. We should be celebrating those small wins just as much as we celebrate those big wins, and be okay with saying that, listen, I did the thing. I think, Kai, you brought it up earlier, being able to reflect back on you walking Miss Cicely Tyson on stage. That's amazing. That is amazing. But you know what? You probably have that buried into all of the things all the great things that you've already done, just because, okay, it's a new day, we got to start over and just off we go. No, let's sit in that. Let's sit in those wins, because it is a win and it's something that we should absolutely be celebrating. So I'm all for kicking that humility and that aspect to the side. Celebrate those big wins just as much as you celebrate those small ones. But in these moments, I think that is where the influence really, really lies. To kind of sum all of this up, that's where the influence lies, is where you see the success of what you've done and been able to support with others, and they're able to multiply that and grow within their own spaces. I think for me, that's what I can see as true influence, that I was able to get that person to that next level and get that feedback, so I know that, hey, it worked really well, or hey, it sucked. Of course, we're not talking about the sucky ones. We're talking about the ones that win. And that's really where it comes down to. So, to me, that's where I think that is ultimately what I look for, and how I know, okay, I made an impact, is where I see the results of that impact, where I've been able to successfully help someone to grow within the space and beyond.
Thank you so much, Brandy. And please let us know, where can we find you? Where can we listen to your podcast?
Absolutely. Well, we are available on all major streaming platforms. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio is one of our newer ones, Amazon Music, you name it, we're on it. And definitely drop us some feedback, drop us a review. We want to hear from you. Thus far, I've mentioned just some of the feedback, but again, tying into just that influence, when I get emails and messages, hey, I tried that thing on your episode on Wicked for Good, and it actually did work. Or I tried your advice on my review on Tyla's rebrand, or another celebrity's fail. I think it was American Eagle that I had talked about a few months back, and just ways that they could have improved upon that brand campaign. And they say, oh, I watched that and I took that advice and I tried this out and my client's happy. That's the type of things that I want to hear, because that lets me know, okay, my influence is felt and it is helping you get further along. That to me is, it's golden. It's definitely where I see the most. But yes, you can find us on all major streaming platforms, the Branding PR Podcast.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. Kelsey or Lauren? See you, Lauren.
Yeah, I'll take it. I love that so much, Brandy. I was sitting here like, yes, girl, yeah. Yes. And you kind of really took the words out of my mouth. And I think for me, meaningful influence, when I was in the earlier, I would even say like the mid-level stages of my career, influence to me always looked like you know, the hits, and it looked like my work, right? It looked like, oh, I did X, Y, and Z. I scored X, Y, and Z hit, or secured X, Y, and Z feature, this event, whatever. But as I've really started to really become who I am as a woman, as I've stepped more into who I am as a woman, and grown into the more senior level part of my career, honestly, what it looks like to me now is legacy and impact. What you were speaking about, Brandy. And, I participate in a lot of different organizations where I'm doing a lot of mentorship. I have so many people, mostly students, who reach out to me about getting into the industry, and tips and advice and all of these things. And I think for me, it's really being able to look back and see like what I left behind, whether that's the impact I made in helping bring and helping, you know, lift as I climb, helping bring other people along with me because I didn't get to where I am by myself. And if I look back and think about all of the people who have helped me, 90% of it was Black women who helped me get to where I'm at. So I do feel that, whatever I do, whatever role I'm in, I do feel that I have a duty to pass that on. And that's something that I don't take lightly. So I'm always trying to help someone else and bring someone else along with me. But also, I think I look back and look at legacy and impact being what about yourself you left behind that will inspire someone else? Because sometimes it cannot just be helping, you cannot just be helping someone by giving them advice and bringing them along, but stepping into something as your true and authentic self, how you portray yourself. People are always watching you. And I think I learned that the most when I, in the first question when I was sharing with you guys about, on this last campaign, which was the last campaign that I did in my role at Paramount. And so it felt really great now to look back and I say, what was my legacy there? And I feel like I left on such an extreme high note because I think people really saw me standing up for myself. And it's, a director level, while it's a senior level, but you definitely have the SVPs and the EVPs who are ahead of you, who you report to. And I think, it shocked a lot of people to see someone like, oh, and she's standing up to SVPs and EVPs. And I think that resonated with a lot of people and made them feel like, okay, I can use my voice too. I don't have to be afraid to be who I am, say what I need to say, even if it goes against what the grain is right now. So I think for me, it's just really, really fully stepping into who I am, my confidence, knowing that that is leaving behind for someone else to feel confident enough to be able to use their voice to step into who they are. And so I think for me, that is what meaningful influence is. Even now I get text messages and emails from, others who are on my team who report it to me and they'll ask me questions and situations. Oh, I need your help about a situation. How should I handle the situation? And it's at their new job. It's not even at the job that we worked at together. And that really fills my cup to see that they value me so much and that the time that we shared and whatever I imparted onto them during our time together, they found me valuable enough that they see me as someone to come back to even after our time together is done, that they're still, she was like, even at this job, I think to myself, how would Lauren handle this situation? And I was really like floored because this girl was someone that we didn't even really talk a lot. She was on my team, but we didn't really talk a great deal. But she was watching me. She was watching the way I handled myself in meetings. She was watching the way that I spoke up. She was watching the way that I took control of situations. And me being my authentic self inspired her in some type of way to find that within herself, right? So I just think for me that has been the most beautiful thing. And it's actually on the flip side been empowering to me to say, okay, keep doing what you're doing, keep stepping into your power, keep doing X, Y, and Z because it's helping somebody else. It's helping somebody else to find their voice. It's helping somebody else to find their power. It's helping somebody else to not feel afraid. So, impact, the legacy I leave, that is 100% what meaningful influence looks like for me.
In Incredible. And you may have just inspired our newest hashtag, which is I can use my voice too. That is powerful. Thank you,
I love
Lauren.
that. Oh, and you can find me, I'm at Miss Lauren Page on Threads and Instagram. And if you like a lot of thought leadership talk and career advice, I'm Lauren Woolard on LinkedIn.
Awesome. I hope everyone finds you and connects with you who's here and inspired from watching you today. Thank you. Kelsey, you want to bring us home?
Yeah, I love everything being said. I'm excited to help close us out. Honestly, it's a mixture of both what Lauren and Brandy said. I think for me, I am legacy driven, purpose fueled, but I walk with intentionality. And that's all very key and important to me. For me, I think what I would add probably just to what has been said is I think my influence is making sure that I keep the door open and if anything, kick the house down. And what that means is not being a gatekeeper in rooms. Like I feel a responsibility. Like there's two things I can't control that I came into this world a Black woman. I'm going to go out of this world a Black woman. And I own that and I love it. It means when I'm in rooms where I don't see us, I make sure I'm having a conversation with folks like, hey, next time you have this event or next time, this conversation is had, here are some folks that I think you should think about. Can I make this connection? I usually define myself by two words, a storyteller and a connector. I love telling stories and I love connecting folks. And I think that's so, so important. The legacy part is key for me. For me, like even just I teach intro to sports writing and reporting. And why it was so important for me is because I never had a Black woman journalism teacher coming up. And that's not to say, look, I had a lot of Black men pouring into me coming up. I had a lot of teachers of all backgrounds, honestly, right? Pouring into me coming up. But I thought it was important because I didn't see it. And I think sometimes it's harder, right? To be something you didn't see. And so to be able to build the curriculum, launch the course, have students actually write me that I have been their first Black professor or teacher, like that means something, right? And so I think for me, like legacy is, what can I leave behind? But even more so, like, 20 years from now, I want that course to still be going on. I want that to develop into a program, right? Hopefully, a school for journalism, and media, even through my internship programs that I run. Right now, a lot of my evenings are writing recommendation letters for internships and for grad schools. And I love that. Take my nights away. Well, after football and basketball, of course, but take my nights away, please, because it's intentional and it means something. But for me, it's the follow up. Like my interns from, 3 years ago, what are you doing now? You're married, you're having a baby, like all that stuff matters. And then we have these conversations like, Professor Nelson, or I don't tell him to call me Miss Nelson, but, I remember the AP style book and, I was writing this. I have an international student now who's about to go in the top business schools. And she was like, we don't write an AP style, but like, I want to show you the articles that were published on the website. Like that means a lot to me. So I think the biggest thing that you can be is like, we can't do any of this alone. I also am like, Lauren, you have to lift as you climb and just remember the shoulders of the giants that we stood upon. And so again, how can we lift all of each other up? Because I'm a person that truly does believe the village is only as strong as each one of its member. There should be no weak member. We should all be strong together. And so again, if you're ever in a room or a place, and so I think like for me, I carry that. And so like a lot of times it feels weird to like still be the like only one. Like, one of the things I always preach about is sports talk radio. There's not enough Black women in sports talk radio. Right now I'm doing soccer and baseball. There's not enough of us, in those sports. And so again, it's for me, like when I find an opportunity, how can I share this with the groups that I'm part of? I'm always sharing out, job links and internship links or, meet this person. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like, no, in DC, we say everybody eats, everybody can eat and win. And I think we just have to stop the status quo of always being in competition with each other. Like you opening a door, I really do think if you're a person of faith that, God will bless you in so many other ways. And, what's meant for you will still be meant for you and it won't miss you. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I can leave is, just spreading the wealth of knowledge. There's a lot here. That's why I love stuff like this because it needs to come out. I can't take it all with me, but I've learned a lot. But also being, able to learn, everything. So I think that's the biggest thing. People look back at K&N and what's all been said and done. She just honestly was a good person that wanted people to just be and love what they love doing, but brought us up, and made sure that we were always in the loop and connected to opportunities. Oh, and my website is kelseynicolenelson.com. Easiest way to reach me. I'm on all social media platforms, The Real K Nelson, LinkedIn, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. And no, I love these. So feel free to like hop in my DMs and start a conversation. I think it's so, so important. And I just think we need this more. I'm very big into community and fellowships. And just thank you for creating this space. And thank you to everyone who tuned in with us. I hope it was fruitful. And I hope everybody got the helpful gem or nugget out of it.
Thank you, Kelsey. That really just like blew my mind where you're thinking about the interns that you have and they're like, oh, by the way, I just graduated, just got, switched jobs into this and that. And like, wow, we're all growing, we're all evolving, and also we're all doing it together. So that is just that's incredible that you get to stay in touch with your students and watch them and continue the process. Incredible. Okay, so this is the moment where I really get to thank everyone. I'm talking to you, the person who's watching, the one who's listening. We're ain't up here by ourselves. You are a part of the conversation. So thank you so much for your comments, for your encouragement. We see it all, and for also remembering that your voice is not an accessory, it's actually part of your purpose. So when you tell your story with intention, like these amazing women here on our panel, you're making it easier for someone to actually step into theirs, as many of us have mentioned. So when you take up space, you open up space for others. When you use your voice, you give others permission to use their voice. And when you own the mic, which is what we're all here doing today, in whatever room that you're in, you contribute to a world that listens differently. So thank you so much for being here, for participating, and for choosing to be a voice and not an echo. And if you're not familiar with the movement, you can find more information at 100womentowatch.com. These amazing, amazing women have said yes to this global visibility campaign, and we will continue owning the mic from here forward, and I hope that you do too. So bye for now, everyone. Thank you again for your time, your presence, your energy, and for watching.